It was just another day. He was nagging his mother, this time about using the wrong fabric softener on his clothes. But his words trailed off when he noticed something was wrong. She was lying motionless on the floor. He rushed to her side, but it was too late. At the funeral, grief turned violent. His uncle struck him across the face in front of everyone.
Still shutting yourself away in your room at your age. You are garbage to society. My sister's death is all your fault.
The house was quiet now, too quiet. He stood in the kitchen, cooking a meal, his eyes dull with grief. Then, something materialized in the air. A skeleton-like spirit spoke to him, asking if his mom was truly gone now. Another spirit appeared, questioning what he would do next, since no one would be able to provide for him anymore. After all, unlike them, humans need money to survive. But even so, he continued to focus on cooking. Then one of them spoke.
Hey, Q boy, that human who hit you at the funeral, want us to eat him? You know, as revenge.
Q politely declined the spirit's offer. Instead, he told it to enjoy the special paella he had just cooked. He stepped outside, knelt before the tombstone, and gently placed the paella in front of it. Q was fully aware of the hardships he had caused his mother, the burden she carried raising and supporting him on her own. He rose to his feet, his eyes now steady with resolve, then turned to the spirits and announced that he will be looking for a job. Q-Boy was always different. Ever since he was a child, he had the ability to see spirits, and because of their influence, he began to speak and look like a noble samurai, formal, old-fashioned, and out of place in the modern world. He didn't always shut himself away. In his younger years, he still went to school, but as he grew older, the bullying worsened. They mocked his speech, called him names, treated him like a joke, just because he was different. One day, he came home in tears, and never left again. But today, after all those years, he stepped outside, wearing a suit, a briefcase in hand, his heart pounding in his chest. Terrified even. But he took a deep breath and persevered. Q-Boy found a job at a local general store. On his first day on the job, the old store manager introduced him to the one who would be training him, a girl named Sheena. Q introduced himself awkwardly, avoiding eye contact.
Nice to meet you.
Pleased to make your acquaintance.
The first thing Sheena taught him was to remember where everything was located. They began exploring the store together, with Q holding a notepad in hand, diligently taking notes. But during the middle of their training, some students began laughing at his appearance. Even children pointed at him.
A bald top knot!
How funny looking.
Sheena looked back and saw Q visibly embarrassed, his eyes low and posture stiff. Without saying anything, she quietly led him to another part of the store for a different task. Next, she began training him on how to handle the register. After going over the basics, she left him to try it on his own. Q did his best, but his formal speech and stiff demeanor occasionally startled customers. Some even took photos of him, amused by his unusual look. Gift wrapping was another hurdle. Despite his effort, his finished packages looked awkward and poorly done. One in particular ended up looking like a used condom with a ribbon on it, leaving the customer frozen in disbelief.
For thy patronage.
Later, Sheena praised him for learning the job quickly and handed him a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from his brow. She advised him to relax and not be so tense. Q became teary-eyed at the gesture. This was the first time in a long while someone had shown him such kindness.
I am most grateful, Lady Sheena.
Lady?
What troubles you, Lady Sheena?
It's nothing. It's time to end our shift for today.
Q quietly pulled out the handkerchief she had given him. He dabbed his face with it. It smelled faintly of fresh lavender, his favorite scent. It seemed that our Q-Boy was developing a crush. Meanwhile, in the staff room, 3 other employees greeted Sheena. They were around her age. One of them, a guy with a nose ring, casually invited her to a small get-together. She politely refused, saying she had other plans for the evening. But the idiot didn't take no for an answer. As she turned to leave, he grabbed her arm.
What plans do you have anyway? Do they last until late? We'll be drinking until morning, so come join us after your plans.
He still wouldn't let go. The atmosphere grew tense as the others looked on silently, the pressure mounting. Sheena looked increasingly uncomfortable. Then the door opened. Q stood there. The nose-ringed guy turned and burst out laughing at the sight of him, loudly questioning who he was. But the distraction was enough. Sheena quickly slipped free and walked out. Before she was out of sight, she gave Q a small bow. A silent thank you. Days passed. During the day, Q worked under Sheena's supervision. In the afternoon, he would sometimes catch himself staring into space, cheeks flushed, smiling quietly to himself. Sheena continued training him as if nothing was unusual. At night, Q would lie on the floor, exhausted. The spirits watched him from the corners of the room, their faces full of concern.
You dummies are so clueless. The boy's got neurosis, plain as day.
What?
That's what happens when you suddenly start going outside. Poor thing.
Q sat up and shouted at them to stop talking shit about him. The spirits scattered. One lingered behind, a spirit with unusually large nostrils. He floated over and gently rubbed Q's bald head to comfort him. He said he understood exactly what Q was going through, having once been in love himself. Q brightened up, finally hopeful that someone with experience could offer some meaningful advice.
In my living days, I too knew the pangs of love, but I lacked the courage and died without ever confessing my feelings. So heed this advice from one who knows regret. Go to her at night and engage with premarital
Q immediately swung at him in outrage, but his hand passed straight through the spirit's body. Before floating off, the spirit offered one final piece of wisdom. Life is shorter than you think, so enjoy every moment. Q watched him disappear, frustrated that he couldn't hit him. One day, while Q was on shift, the nose-ring boy approached him. With a smug grin, he said he was thinking of throwing a welcome party for Shogun. That was the nickname they had given Q. Sheena looked at him with utter disdain, as if he were nothing more than trash. Later that afternoon, the party was in full swing. Music, chatter, and laughter filled the room. Q sat with a few of his coworkers, sipping his drink quietly. Sheena leaned over and gave him a word of advice. She told him to feel free to leave whenever he wanted. These people, she warned, were the type to drink until morning. But Q shook his head. He said he had been a shut-in for so long. He wanted to experience gatherings like this, even if just once. A girl with twin tails noticed them whispering and immediately rushed over, grinning. She interrogated them playfully, asking if they were secretly dating.
No way. Hey Shogun, have you ever had a girlfriend?
Nay, I have never had such fortune.
So that means you're a virgin.
He laughed even harder, tapping Q's bald head like he was a joke, and told him it was because of his hairstyle that he'd never had one. Twintail looked at him with a puzzled expression, questioning why he had chosen that hairstyle. Q replied simply, it was due to the influence of historical dramas. The nose-ring boy roared with laughter again, mocking Q for what he called such a shallow reason. But Q didn't stay silent. He wasn't going to let the day end with him being everyone's punching bag. He looked at the nose-ring boy and retorted that he could say the same about him for choosing to replicate a cow. Sheena burst out laughing. She doubled over, clutching her stomach, her eyes tearing up as she laughed uncontrollably. The cow didn't find it as funny. His expression darkened at the sight of her laughing. Q, noticing the clock, stood up and smoothed his shirt. He addressed the group formally and announced that he must take his leave. He had a curfew to follow. Sheena also stood up, preparing to leave. But the cow, nose-ring, called out to her, asking her to wait and not leave.
Wait, why are you leaving too? Just because he's leaving?
What's the problem?
No, that's weird. Don't tell me you're actually dating Baldy McFatty here.
Ugh, we're not dating. Excuse me,
But
I'm
still,
leaving.
the cow didn't back off. As she tried to walk past, he grabbed her arm again, insisting she stay. Sheena's expression stiffened. She told him to let go, but he didn't. Watching this unfold, Q's eyes narrowed. He stepped forward, raised his hand, and brought it down in a sharp karate chop, breaking the cow's grip on Sheena's arm. Without thinking, he grabbed Sheena's wrist, and they ran. They ran through the streets, Q panting heavily until he was too exhausted to continue. Finally, he stopped, released her wrist, and turned to her, bowing deeply. He apologized for his impulsive action, but Sheena, catching her breath, smiled slightly. She told him that what he did had actually helped her. When things finally calmed down, they began walking through the city. The streets were alive with people and noise, but between them, there was only silence. Q walked a little ahead, Sheena following quietly behind. They didn't speak. The tension hung in the air. Q's hands trembled slightly. He was nervous. He couldn't contain what he was feeling anymore. Suddenly, he turned, breaking the silence. His voice was firm, but his face was flushed. He confessed his feelings.
That is all I wish to say.
Then, he apologized. He explained that a friend of his had passed away without ever expressing how he truly felt, so he didn't want to repeat that mistake. Sheena looked at him blushing. She admitted that she might like Q too, maybe about 5%, or perhaps closer to 2.5. She told him it would be best to take their time and start as friends. The next day, when Q entered the staff room, he saw the cow with a bandage on his arm. Feeling guilty, Q bowed deeply and apologized for causing the injury. The cow smiled at him and called him fat, telling him to get out of the way. Later, the cow vented his frustration to his friend, a guy wearing a beanie. Just then, the twin-tailed girl joined the conversation. She told them that Q's house was supposedly a famous haunted spot. Beanie laughed and asked who told her that. Twintail replied, "It was the manager." The manager had said that when he was a child, they were absolutely forbidden from going near it. According to him, Q's home was an old samurai residence deep in the mountains. The manager had nearly fallen over when he first saw the address on Q's job application. The cow grinned. He would use this opportunity to get back at Q. Later, while they were restocking shelves, Sheena asked Q why he agreed to let those people come to his house. Q explained that he felt obligated. He had injured someone and wanted to make amends. Sheena told him that they were just coming to mock him. But Q thanked Sheena for always showing him kindness. He said he would still go through with it. This might be the perfect opportunity to make friends, and he believed it would make his late mother happy.
I'm coming to your house too.
What? Why would you?
Because I am worried about you. As your supervisor and as your friend, I will keep eyes on those people.
Q was in disbelief. His crush was going to his house. That was all he could think about. Even at home, he was spaced out, blushing. The spirits screamed at him, but he ignored them. The other spirits watched him with concern. Later that night, in the attic, a single candle flickered as light. The spirits held a secret meeting. Their topic, Q's behavior lately. They voiced their frustrations. Q didn't make food offerings anymore. He was always too tired from work. Dust was building up everywhere, and lately he'd been ignoring them, constantly lost in thought.
All of this nonsense is the fault of that wench he calls Lady Sheena.
What if Q-Boy gets married and has children?
Surely we shall be forgotten entirely.
The room fell silent. The spirits grew sad at the thought of being abandoned. Some even teared up. They made a decision. They needed to bring back the old Q.
Why don't we just eat Lady Sheena and be done with it?
The three continued with their plan and went to Q's house. They were immediately unsettled by the eerie atmosphere. Beanie whispered to the cow that maybe they should call it off, but the cow refused. He insisted they go through with it, especially because Sheena would be there. His goal was to make Q look bad in front of her. Finally, they reached the front gate. Bracing themselves for the worst, they stepped forward, only to be greeted by the mouth-watering aroma of food laid out on the table. The cow stared with thinly veiled jealousy while the others looked on in awe. Q welcomed them warmly, noting that they must have had a hard time on the mountain path. That's why he had prepared a feast. Beanie asked if Sheena had helped prepare the meal, but she shook her head. She told him Q made everything himself.
This is my first time ever having visitors, so I got carried away with the preparations.
This is so delicious, Shogun.
Well then, me too.
But Beanie hesitated under the cow's glare. The cow quickly tried to downplay Q's efforts, earning another disgusted look from Sheena. Then, the cow brought up the rumor about the house being haunted, which made Q visibly uncomfortable. He demanded that Q show them the supposed evil spirits. Q snapped, angered that he would call his spirit friends evil. He replied sharply, there were no evil spirits in this house.
Besides, living in such a creepy place, an old shut-in like you, it's just creepy and gross.
He looked at Beanie, seeking support. Beanie looked away awkwardly but mumbled his agreement. The cow sneered and called Q a nuisance, saying everyone wanted him to quit and that he should just leave the job. Sheena stepped forward.
Hey, that's
but
enough.
just then, the lights went out. Everyone panics. Q told everyone that this rarely happened, so he will go check the breaker. Beanie panics, telling the cow to stop breathing in his ear, but the cow denies it. He is not doing it.
Come on. There's been this heavy breathing sound.
The lights came back on, but Beanie was nowhere to be seen. Twintail, clearly shaken, asked if the power was still out. She said she was terrible with darkness and urged Q to hurry. But when she turned back to them, her eyes were gone. The cow screamed and tried to get away. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The spirits were real. Panicked, he told Sheena they should run, but before they could move, the spirits charged at him. They slammed him into the wall, squashing him. He shrieked in terror as one of the spirits grabbed his nose ring and tore it out. He screamed in agony. Q ran in, shouting at the spirits, demanding to know what they were doing to his guests.
What are you saying, Dange? We need to run now.
The little girl is right. What nonsense are you spouting, human? We are the spirits of the mountain. We don't know you in the slightest.
How many years do you think we've been together? I would never mistake my friends, even if their appearance changed.
Sheena screamed as a crab-like spirit grabbed her, preparing to feast. Q, furious, lunged at the crab, crashing into it and pushing it back. He was overwhelmed with anger and disappointment in his old friends. He kept pushing, crying out as tears streamed down his face. The crab closed its eyes and began to remember. Q, as a child, came home crying, shouting the same phrase. The spirits had gathered around, asking what was wrong. They asked if he had been bullied again. But when young Q was angry, all he could say was one thing. A sand spirit had tried to comfort him, saying a true samurai must never shed tears. But Q just kicked sand in his face. That's when other spirits had appeared, greeting him, inviting him to play sumo. Q, finally calming down, had agreed to play. Later, when his mother came home from work, she heard Q laughing. She went to check on him. Q greeted her happily and gave her a hug.
Were you doing something fun?
I was playing with my friends at home.
His mother looked around. There were no other children, but she still hugged him and smiled, glad that he is having fun.
We're having stew for dinner.
Hooray!
Would you like to help me make it?
Yes!
The spirits happily watched the warm scene in front of them. Back in the present, Q was still pushing the crab while crying. The crab, now in tears too, closed its eyes and disappeared. The other spirits soon followed. Q caught the falling Sheena. Twintail got her eyes back. Beanie fell from the ceiling, landing headfirst. The cow curled into a fetal position, traumatized.
We, the spirits, have been defeated.
Such formidable spiritual power.
We've never encountered anyone as impressive as you.
Before they vanished, a whisper came to Sheena's ear.
Please take care of our Q-boy.
Sheena turned around, but no one was there. Beanie and Twintail knelt in front of Q, thanking him for saving them. Q insisted he did nothing, but they still called him their hero. The cow grew furious, blaming Q for everything that had happened. The two turned to him and told him to shut up, reminding him that he was the one who dragged them there. Then, they began to beat him up while Q stood by the attic, wondering what had just happened. Earlier, the spirits had gathered.
And be done with it.
What foolishness are you spouting, you imbecile?
He stepped forward and addressed the group. Tengu shoved the spirit aside, his voice roars. He reminded them that they were nothing more than lowly earthbound spirits. The house they dwelled in was a cesspool, and yet Q and his mother had lived there, cleaning it, offering food and prayers. Tengu's voice cracked as he asked if they had forgotten the promise they once made. The room fell silent. He wept. The other spirits followed, tears welling in their eyes. Tengu swore he would not let them forget, not the promise they made that day.
It's early summer, isn't it? Are you listening? I can't see you, but Kyutaro is gentle and strong and special. He is my proud son, but sometimes he is too special. Right now, he is taking a quick break. He will come across difficult situations in life. I surely don't have much time left, so please take care of that child. I beg you. Can you even hear me?
The spirits cried. They admitted they had been fools, and so they made a decision. It was time to repay their debt to Q and his mother. They would support Q in their own way. Days passed. Q was in the kitchen once again, cooking with quiet focus. As usual, he divided the portions. Then, stepping out into the cold winter air, he made his way to the tomb and placed one offering there. The chill bit at his skin, but he lingered for a moment in silence before heading off to work. At the store, Q greeted his coworkers, who now returned his greeting warmly. It seemed Twintail and Beanie had become his friends. He had finally adjusted, no longer stumbling over his words with customers. His gift wrapping had improved too. Of course, some things hadn't changed. People still took pictures of him. But now, he didn't seem to mind. After work, as he stepped outside, he found Sheena waiting for him.
How's your day been?
He asked why she was earlier than their agreed time, but Sheena only smiled and said she was starving and excited for his cooking. Q smiled back. At home, he served her his special paella. Sheena cheered and took a bite.
Dange, this is mind-blowingly delicious.
You flatter me.
While eating, Sheena glanced up and noticed a photograph on top of the cabinet. It showed Q with his mother. She complimented it. Q turned to look at the same photo. But what he saw was different. Alongside him and his mother were the spirits, smiling around them.
Indeed, that is a fine photograph.
Once a shut-in with no direction, Q was now taking steps forward. The house, once heavy with silence, now felt warm and a little bigger. Thank you for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you want more content like this.